relevant to this lawsuit. I must accept this advice or risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective representation. Accordingly, I assert my constitutional rights as guaranteed by the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution.
Mr. Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell and you have devised several schemes to lure underage girls to you for sex. Isn't that correct?
Form, argumentative, harassing.
Mr. Edwards, your firm has fabricated multiple cases, sexual harassment claims and other types of sexual cases against me and others in order to be part of what the U.S. Attorney described as the largest fraud in Florida's history. I'd like to answer all your questions. However, my attorneys have counseled me that at least today I must assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights of the U.S. Constitution.
Do you own a home in Manhattan?
I intend to respond to all relevant questions to this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions relevant to this lawsuit. And I must accept their advice or risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective representation. Accordingly, therefore, I have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right under the U.S. Constitution.
Do you own an island in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
I intend to respond to all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions relevant to this lawsuit, no matter how much I'd like to. Therefore, I must accept their advice or risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective representation. Therefore, I have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right to the U.S. Constitution.
Do you own a home in New Mexico?
I intend to respond to all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit, and as I've had to do with most of your questions here today, I'm going to have to take my attorney's advice and assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right under the U.S. Constitution, or risk losing effective representation.
Is it true that you have had underage females at each of those homes for orgies with you and Ghislaine Maxwell?
Form, argumentative, speculation, and harassing.
Well, I would like to answer that question. I really would. However, as your firm has been described by the U.S. Attorney as a criminal enterprise, its principal purpose was racketeering conspiracy to generate money for the firm and its co-conspirators through the operation and enterprise and through various activities including mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, and fabricating multiple sex cases against me and others. Though I'd like to answer your question today, Mr. Edwards, my counsel has advised me I must take the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right provided by the U.S. Constitution.
You know somebody named...
Would you spell that for the record?
No.
Or for the court report?
You don't know the name?
No. Could you spell it? Okay.
Did your sexual obsession with underage minor females grow at some point in time to allow you access to these underage minors every single day for sex?
Overbroad, speculation, argumentative, compound, harassing, and confusion. Confusing as worded. You want to break it down, Mr. Edwards?
Isn't it true that for the past 10 years, you have found a way to engage in sexual conduct with underage minors on an everyday basis?
Speculation, argumentative.
It was 2010.
As your firm has been described as a criminal enterprise by the United States Attorney and as part of the scheme to defraud people in South Florida of millions of dollars, you have fabricated sexual cases and sexual claims against people like me and others. Unfortunately, this time, though I'd like to answer your question, Mr. Edwards, my counsels advise me I cannot. And they advise me I must assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Isn't it true that you have promised underage minors money or other benefits to engage in sexual conduct with you over the past 10 years?
Jeff H. Pigs. Good to see you, brother.
As I've answered many of your questions today,
2010
probably
deposition.
answered most of your questions today. As your firm has been described, the firm bringing this lawsuit, I believe, has been described, and if I'm wrong, please correct me.
You're wrong.
Okay. This is the firm that didn't notice this deposition?
Yeah, thanks for coming in, brother.
Originally?
No.
Okay. Did not notice?
Right.
I apologize. So your former firm has been described, and the person you represent, Tatum Miller, in this case, was represented by the firm that was described by the U.S. Attorney as perpetrating one of the largest frauds in South Florida's history, fabricating multiple sexual cases against me and others in order to fleece unsuspecting investors.
That Yeshua Returns video,
Unfortunately, I'd like to answer each one of your questions.
music video
My counsel has advised me I must insert
was awesome. It was. Yep. Hey, Rami, good to see you, brother.
No, believe me, no, I'd like to answer those questions, but at this moment I must assert those rights.
I just watched, I think it was yesterday's Yeshua Returns. It was,
Jane Doe 102.
It was-
Jane Doe 102.
so I got this watching. So 2010, Rami.
Had nothing to do with Rothstein, Rosenfeld, Adler. Do you know?
I mean, this guy, what a.
So again, who? Can you
Bunch
spell
of fuck. Well, I'm not gonna swear this early. Put it that way.
it? Can you spell it? What's the last name? How's it spelled? I believe.
Yeah, Rami's probably right.
Questions regarding this
Well, he
lawsuit.
usually is. So,
However,
you
the
know,
present time, my attorneys have
fair enough.
advised me that I cannot
Oh,
provide
he always is, by the way.
may be developed in this lawsuit. I must accept this advice or risk losing my 6th Amendment right to effective representation. Accordingly, I assert my constitutional rights as guaranteed by the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment to the Constitution.
Man, nobody even knows who this, where this guy
I
is.
can only spell it
They-
the
you
way
know,
that it was spelled in
that horse
your
shit that he-
flight logs from your
there's
airplane.
not
I don't know
around
exactly
anymore.
How she spells her name, only how your pilot
I don't
spelled it.
even believe that
So,
shit either.
If I
Speculation.
misspell it,
That guy's somewhere else.
Form speculation, argumentative, harassing,
that's
and
harassment.
assumes facts currently not in evidence in this particular deposition.
2010
and therefore may be
deposition.
stricken.
I was responding to his question, asking me how to spell her name. I don't know how, other than his own pilot.
Mr. Edwards, he asked you to spell the name. You then spelled the name, and then you went on another narrative. There wasn't a question posed on the floor.
You would agree that you interacted with
I mean, Trump's
every day
Trump's
in a
been in
sexual
office
way
for a
when
year
she was
now.
15 years old.
Bongino, Patel, all these guys. You know, these guys are so full of
So you would agree that you interacted with sexually on an everyday basis.
If anybody
when she was
can't see
15
it by
years old.
now,
You know, again, Mr. Edwards,
And they keep
I'd like to
making
answer all your questions here
excuses
today. My attorneys have asked me, advised me that I must assert my 6th Amendment, 14th
for all their
Amendment,
buddies.
5th Amendment rights provided by the U.S. Constitution. And the fact that the current U.S. Attorney has described your law firm as a criminal enterprise.
It's, you
one of
know,
the
I,
largest frauds in Florida's history for fabricating sexual cases of a sexual nature against me and others. Unfortunately, though I'd like to answer those questions.
you know, remember 10 years ago, because you'd be in jail. He says to Hillary Clinton,
All right, Madam Court
I mean,
Reporter, I'm going to attach as an exhibit
give me a
the Jane Doe
flippin'
number
break, man.
102 versus Jeffrey Epstein complaint at some point in time. It doesn't have to be done now,
I mean,
but it's going to be Exhibit 1.
this is so.
So I
This
go through
is.
some of the facts as alleged in the complaint.
We are at a point in history now that as information keeps coming out and this keeps getting exposed to the world.
And it has my notes.
Good to see you, 75. Good to see you, brother. In a bigger and bigger way by independent people
Operative pleading, correct?
doing what others don't.
It means that there may have been some amendments to a complaint. I want to make sure that that is the operative complaint at issue that he's speaking from today.
But we all got to be careful here. We all gotta, we gotta stay on task. Gotta stay in the middle of the lanes. Quit going over the line or whatever that is.
He wants to speak with me for a second.
Hey, Holly, good to see you, brother. 75, good morning to you. Oh, that might have been it. Oh, maybe not. Maybe they'll come back and let's come.
Back on the video record at 12:02 p.m.
Is it true, Mr. Epstein, that you and Ghislaine Maxwell
Yeah, that's a good point, Robbie. Why?
to have sex with you on a daily basis?
Form argumentative, harassing.
No, you could be right, Robbie. It could be squirrel. Here, we'll drop all this. Put all these emails out there and all this shit. You remember that Pam Bondi, what'd she say?
A serious criminal enterprise by
Let me see.
the current U.S. attorney.
Let me see. Pam Bondi was sitting in that restaurant. There's 10,000 videos and pictures and oh my god, all this. Okay, was she supposed to say that? Is that true? Why was somebody on the other seat filming it, or happened to be in public? And she's saying that's a good point, actually. And she's saying that in a restaurant, in a restaurant around people. Okay. When you talk in private or whatever, or you supposedly private, you're not going to say shit like that in a restaurant.
Part of that criminal enterprise was fabricating cases of sexual nature against me and others in order to fleece unsuspecting investors out of millions of dollars. So though unfortunately at this time, no matter how I'd like to respond to your questions, I must assert my 6th Amendment, 5th Amendment, and 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution or risk having my attorneys resign.
Isn't it true that was yours and Ghislaine Maxwell's sex slave from the time she was 15 through the time she escaped when she was 19?
Again, objection, argumentative, harassing.
Wow.
Mr. Edwards, your firm has been described as as a criminal enterprise by the current U.S. attorney.
I remember watching this
Part of the
years
largest
ago,
fraud in Florida's
this
history.
deposition.
Part of that fraud was fabricating multiple cases against people like me and others of a sexual nature in order to fleece unsuspecting investors out of millions and millions of dollars. So though I'd like to answer that question, my attorneys have told me today I must assert my 6th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and 5th Amendment right.
Isn't it true that you and Ghislaine Maxwell celebrated her 16th birthday with her and had sex with her on that day?
Form, compound, confusing, argumentative, and harassing.
Lawyers are so dirty as well, though. Jeez.
My attorneys told me today that I have to, at least today, assert my 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment, and 14th Amendment rights to the U.S. Constitution. Especially, my concern is that your firm has filed fraudulent lawsuits, fabricated lawsuits, and the U.S. attorney, the current U.S. attorney, has described the firm as a criminal enterprise that whose main purpose was to generate money for the firm and its co-conspirators through the operation of various criminal activities, including mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering.
you saying that the complaint of against you, the allegations in that claim, are false?
Form misinterprets the witness's testimony.
Or are you saying it's true?
Same objection.
It's either true or false.
What I said, maybe I'll repeat myself, unfortunately. But the current U.S. Attorney has described your law firm was involved in the following
Jeez.
motions. I'm sorry. You want to tell me what it was? What would you like to tell me the firm's involvement in this lawsuit? Since this will be here the rest of the day.
Answer the question.
Oh, go fine. The U.S. Attorney has described that firm as a criminal enterprise perpetrating one of the largest frauds in Florida's history against unsuspecting investors, fleecing them out of millions of dollars by creating, crafting, and fabricating fallacious sexual claims against people like me and others. So unfortunately, though I'd like to answer your questions, Mr. Edwards, my counsel has advised me that at least today, I must assert my Sixth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution.
Isn't it true, sir, and I'm reading,
Especially because your firm involved in this lawsuit has fabricated, widely reported, multiple cases of sexual harassment cases against individuals like me and others, perpetrating what the U.S. Attorney called one of the largest frauds in Florida's history, fleecing people out of millions of dollars. So though I'd like to answer that question, today I have to assert those rights or risk losing my attorney's counsel.
is it true that you forced as a 15-year-old girl to have sex with numerous friends of yours?
Are you kidding?
Reading from her law.
Oh, you're reading from us. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Evans. I'm going to have to, though I'd like to answer that question as well, as I answered most of your other questions here today, I would like to respond. My attorneys, however, have advised me I have to assert my Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, and 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution, especially as your firm has been accused by the U.S. Attorney as being a criminal enterprise, part of the largest fraud.
I wonder what island they have him on now.
Basically, I'm sorry if I read correctly, the operation of the enterprise through various criminal activities, including mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, fabricating sexual harassment cases against people like me and others.
By the way,
Yes.
didn't receive a round-trip ticket paid for by you to, and she ultimately did not get back on the plane, but instead escaped to.
I'd like to answer that question, but today I'm going to have to assert my Sixth Amendment rights, my Fifth Amendment rights, and my 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution, especially since your firm has been described as perpetrating one of the largest frauds.
That's fucking guy.
Fleecing investors out
Jesus.
of millions of dollars, being described by the U.S. Attorney of South Florida as a criminal enterprise, engaged in various criminal activities, including mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering.
Do you know a man named Jean-Luc Brunel?
Can you spell it?
He was at your house last week. Does that remind you?
Form, move to strike, speculation, argumentative, harassing.
He was at your house
Is there a
last
question
week.
on the table, Mr.
Yes, do you know him?
Could you spell his name for me, please?
I don't need to spell his name. You know who I'm talking about, Mr. Brunel.
I'm sorry, could you... Mr. What?
B-R-U-N-E-L.
I see.
Good night.
I would like to answer that question as well, but my attorneys have counseled me to that today. I'm going to have to assert my Sixth Amendment rights, my Fifth Amendment rights, and my 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution, or risk losing my right to effective representation.
What's the purpose for you asking me to spell his name? Are you acting like you don't know him?
Form, move to strike, argumentative, and irrelevant as worded. Mr. Edwards, you know that there are various standing orders, if not in this case, in various other cases, that specifically describe the protections of the Fifth Amendment. Federal courts have ordered that certain questions that you are asking shall not be answered, or Mr. Epstein would risk losing his Fifth Amendment right.
No, I understand that.
Wait, under the
Exactly,
United
spell
States.
people's names.
Wait a second. Under the United States Constitution, a lot of these questions here today that you're asking have already been ruled on by various courts that the Fifth Amendment protects any response there too. So I would like it. I'm giving you some leeway here with regard to these argumentative questions. We've already, and I'm not obviously testifying for the witness, but we've already handled a lot of these issues in court, and we've already adjourned one deposition for being argumentative, and I think you understand what the court said there. So, having said that, and I understand that you have a job to do, but having said that, I would like to caution you professionally that if you continue with the argumentative questions, I am going to have to terminate this deposition, and then we'll
Do
just...
what you have to do, Mr. Pike. I completely understand.
Okay. We're here today...
Mr. Brunel is a...
I'm sorry, just go ahead. We're here, I want the court to know that we're here today to allow you to ask your questions, but the harassing and argumentative tone is not going to be tolerated. So
There's a
just go ahead and
video.
proceed.
There's a video. We can show the court the tone. It's obviously not harassing. So,
That's fine.
Mr. Brunel is a longtime friend of yours, right?
I intend to respond to all relevant questions to this lawsuit. However, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot
Holy
provide
shit,
any
this
questions
guy.
that may be relevant to this lawsuit, and I must accept their advice or risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective
Oh, he's crazy.
representation.
You know him as somebody who has been caught engaging in sex
These
with underage
depositions,
minors in the
boy,
past. Is
holy
that correct?
moly. Depositions have been to what?
Question, sorry.
You know Mr. Brunel
They
as
have
somebody who
criminals
has been
here?
caught engaging in sex with minors in the past. Is that correct?
Well, they're all getting sued here,
I
so
intend to
it's the
respond
same
to
damn
all relevant
thing.
questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions relevant to this lawsuit, and I must accept their advice or risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective representation. As your firm has been described by the U.S. Attorney as a criminal enterprise and part of one of the largest frauds in Florida's history, it specifically said you've been fabricating, the law firm was fabricating multiple cases involving of a sexual nature in order to fleece unsuspecting investors out of millions of dollars, including mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. So unfortunately, though I'd like to answer all your questions here today, I must assert my Sixth Amendment, 14th Amendment, and Fifth Amendment
And
right.
this is what they
You were
do.
involved in a modeling business with him called
They
MC
accuse
Squared.
you.
Is that correct?
Of everything they do, and then get a judge to sign it.
Agency with Mr. Brunel
Sorry.
called MC Squared.
Involved means what? Sorry. What do you
Exactly what
You
they do.
tell the jury your involvement with the modeling agency. You can clarify. I'll let you do that.
I intend to respond to all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions relevant to this lawsuit, and I must accept their advice or risk losing my Fifth, Sixth, and 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution.
And when you were being criminally investigated and was in, is it true that you made a personal telephone call to her telling her not to come forward with any of the information she knew?
Again, sorry, this is complicated.
When you were being, I'm putting a time frame on it, the time period where you were being criminally investigated.
What time frame is that?
In her complaint, it's not specific. But at some point, let's just make it whenever. At some point in time, did you place a telephone call to in Australia, warning her not to come forward with any information about you engaging in sex with her while she was a minor?
I intend to respond to all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions relevant to this lawsuit, and I must accept their advice at risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective representation.
With respect to underage females, isn't it true that you have made the statement, in quotes, the younger the better?
Again, As your firm has been described by the current U.S. Attorney as a criminal enterprise involved in mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and specifically crafting, fabricating multiple cases of a sexual nature against people like me and others in order to fleece many, many unsuspecting investors.
And they did nothing to this guy.
I would like to answer your questions here today, Mr. Edwards, but unfortunately my attorneys have counseled me that I must assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment, or they will resign.
This guy's on some other island, probably.
Who are your current
Okay.
employees?
Good to see you.
Again,
Who are your
A
current
lot of
employees?
Gia.
People who work for you that you pay.
I'm some cereal watching this
I intend to
criminals come
respond to
back.
all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide
2000
answers to any questions that
excuse
may
me.
be relevant to this lawsuit,
2010
disclosing my 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment right to
Deposition.
effective representation. Accordingly, therefore, I must assert my 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment, and 14th Amendment rights as provided by the U.S. Constitution.
Isn't it true that you pay your employees to bring you underage minor females for sex?
Form argumentative speculation, correct.
Mr. Edwards, your firm has been described by the current U.S.
Jeez,
Attorney
this fucking
as
guy.
a criminal enterprise. A criminal enterprise. Part of the largest fraud in South Florida's history. Part of that fraud was
The lawyer's life and habit, though. I must say that.
fictitious cases against against people like me of a sexual nature in order to fleece unsuspecting investors out of millions of dollars. Unfortunately, at this time, though I'd like to answer every one of your questions, my attorneys advised me that I must assert my 6th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and 5th Amendment rights, or risk losing them as my attorneys.
Isn't it true when underage females were brought to you, you would engage in sex with them and pay them?
Form argumentative harassing.
Are you shaking your head to say no?
Excuse me?
Are you shaking your head to say no? I don't know how to interpret the answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was shaking my head.
Okay.
One second.
I thought he was actually answering a question.
Move to strike. The rules are well known to every lawyer who practices in the state of Florida. And it's clear that a nod of the head or a shake of the head is not understood by the record. So therefore, Mr. Epstein clearly was not responding to one of your questions, and you know that, Mr. Edwards.
This is on video, Mike.
Nonetheless,
So what?
you
We can
know
still-
the rules. Nonetheless, if we have a question on the table, would you please repeat it so I can recall it, and so Mr. Epstein can endeavor to answer it.
Sure, and if it was only a court reporter, I would agree, but the jury's going to see a video, and everybody knows commonly, somebody shakes their head, they're saying no. If that was the answer, I wanted to give him a chance to elaborate on it. That's it. Isn't it true that when underage females would come to your house, you would engage in sexual activity with them and then pay them?
Same projections.
Unfortunately, I'd like to answer that question today, but my attorneys have counseled me that I must assert my 6th Amendment right, my 5th Amendment right, and my
Yes,
14th
up and
Amendment
down.
right under the U.S. Constitution. The fact that your firm has been described as a criminal enterprise and part of one of the largest frauds in Florida's, South Florida's
This dude's
history.
hanging out in Israel. That's where he's at.
Fraud has been described as fabricating cases of sexual nature against me
He's over there hanging
and
out with,
others in
BB.
order to fleece unsuspecting investors out of millions of dollars. I would like to answer that question, Mr. Edwards. But however, today, I must assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment right.
In addition to paying these underage females for sexual activity, you also paid them to bring their underage friends to you to also engage in sexual activity with. Is that correct?
I intend to respond to all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I may not. And I must assert, they have advised me I must assert my 6th Amendment right, my 5th Amendment right, and my 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution.
You would pay underage females $200 to $300 for engaging in sexual activity with you, or for procuring another underage female to engage in sexual activity with. Is that correct?
Form, move to strike, assumes facts not in evidence, and calls for a legal conclusion, and is as well argumentative.
I intend to respond to all relevant questions regarding this lawsuit. However, at the present time, my attorneys have counseled me that I cannot provide answers to any questions that may be relevant to this lawsuit, and I must accept their advice or risk losing my Sixth Amendment right to effective representation. Accordingly, therefore, I must assert my constitutional rights as guaranteed by the 5th, 6th, and 14th
Epstein didn't
Amendment
kill
to the U.S.
himself.
Constitution.
Guy's not even
Would
dead.
you agree that your scheme was devised to coerce these underage minors to bring you as many other underage minors as were available for you to engage in sexual activity with?
Form.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Would you agree that your scheme was devised to coerce underage girls into bringing as many other underage girls to you as were available for sexual purposes?
Form.
Did you say for sexual purposes?
Yes, for sexual purposes.
I'm not surprised. Sorry. Since your firm was described as perpetrating one of the largest frauds in Florida's history by crafting fabricated sexual harassment cases against people like me and others in order to fleece unsuspecting investors out of millions of dollars, I would like to answer that question. However, today, my attorneys have advised me I must assert my Sixth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and 14th Amendment right under the U.S. Constitution. And if I don't do so, I risk losing effective representation.
Utilizing this method of using underage minors to bring you other underage minors,
Wow.
you
This
were
guy.
able to engage in sex with hundreds of underage minor females. Is that true?
Form.
He's
Argumentative.
definitely letting him have it, though.
Calls for speculation.
Since, Mr. Edwards, your firm has been described as a criminal enterprise by the U.S. Attorney, and as part of the largest fraud in South Florida's history, and as part of the fraud fabricating malicious cases of sexual harassment and other cases of sexual nature against people like me and others, though I'd like to answer that question today, my attorneys have advised me I must assert my Sixth Amendment, 14th Amendment, and Fifth Amendment rights of the U.S. Constitution. Though I believe you know I'd really like to answer your questions, but at this moment, if I don't assert those rights, I risk having my attorneys resign.
Isn't it true that with this method, you were able to interact sexually with underage girls every single day?
Form. Asked and answered. Same as that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
Sure. With this method
Can you repeat it?
of using
What? Sorry?
your method of using underage minors to bring you other underage minors for sex, isn't it true that that method resulted in you engaging in sexual activity with underage minors on an everyday basis?
Same objections.
Your firm has been described by the current U.S. Attorney as a criminal enterprise engaged in one of the largest frauds in South Florida's history, and as part of that fraud, fabricating malicious cases of sexual nature against people like me and others. So unfortunately, though I'd like to answer that question today, I must assert my Sixth Amendment, 14th Amendment, and Fifth Amendment rights that my counsels advised me to do. Though I believe you know I'd really like to answer those questions today, I must assert those rights or risk losing my attorney's representation.
To keep track of all of these underage minors, you stored their names and telephone numbers in your home computer, isn't that correct?
Form. Argumentative. Speculation.
Again? Sorry.
Are you going to answer the question or just read? If you are going to answer the question, of course, I'll keep reading it as many times.
Wait 1 second. The witness is attempting to answer your question. He asked you to repeat the question.
He is?
He asked you to repeat the question.
And I don't mind going through that, Mike, because I do want answers. But if I'm going to repeat the question multiple times and still get the same answer, we're just wasting time. I'm just trying to stop us from wasting time repeating questions if I'm getting the same non-responsive answer.
I understand your
As a reminder.
intention here.
Yeah.
However, these questions are
As a
similar,
reminder.
if not identical, to there is required to invoke his 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights under the United States Constitution. If you came here today thinking that you were going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and get, waive Mr. Epstein was going to waive his 5th, 6th, and 14th
Well, it
Amendment
keeps
rights
going
under
on
the
and on and
Constitution,
on.
at least not today. That will not be
And,
occurring.
Epstein didn't even kill himself. This is from 2012,
Is it true that to keep track
2011.
of names,
And I'm sure he's hanging out in Israel with Beatty. That's probably true. Thanks for tuning in.
you stored those names and phone numbers in your